Good afternoon, St. John. Come on in the room. Come on in the room. Welcome to our Let's Get Vaccinated workshop. We're going to give everyone a few seconds to come on in, and we're going to get started tonight with some valuable information. Share this with all of your family and friends because the information going forward, everyone needs to know so that we can get as many people vaccinated as possible. So start a watch party, hit share, and invite your friends. Welcome, Cassandra. Hello, St. John. Good evening. Good evening. We want to welcome you to our Let's Get Vaccinated workshop. Come on in, hit like, click share. Welcome all your family and friends to get this valuable information on vaccines. We'll be starting in a few moments. We're going to allow some more people to come in. Let us know you're here. Say hello in the chat section. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. We're going to give it one more minute. Good evening, Sister Bailey. We're excited you could join us. Click like and share this broadcast with everyone you know so we can spread this information about the vaccine so that we can end COVID-19 and get back to a somewhat usual life. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. A few more seconds here, and we'll be ready to begin. All right. Well, my name is Lisa Copeland, and I am the executive admin to ministries at St. John Baptist Church, and I want to welcome you tonight to our Let's Get Vaccinated workshop. We have some experts here who have joined in with us, who want to share their expertise, want to give us some answers to the questions that's been kind of floating in our minds about this vaccine. We're going to shatter some myths tonight of what we think about the vaccine. And hopefully you'll be able to walk away with some valuable information that you can even go share with your family to make sure that everyone gets vaccinated and we can get back to life as we knew it. Well, not quite as we knew it, the full extent of it, because I'm sure there's some things that we still need to be careful of, but we can get back to some normalcy in our lives. So tonight with us, we have Kelly Kessler, who is a director at the health department for Howard County. And we have Dr. Rhea Cragen, who is a family physician, and they are going to introduce themselves and share this valuable information. I would like for everyone to please correspond with me in the chat section so that we can make sure that they can answer your specific questions that you have. Also, share We want to make sure that everyone gets this information, that you're sharing it with your Facebook friends, you're inviting them, you're having a party, a watch party on Facebook, and we want to make sure that everyone makes sure that they don't leave today without their valuable questions being answered. So I'm going to turn it over to Kelly, and she is going to introduce herself, followed by Dr. Cragen, and we're going to get started with the presentation.
So thank you, everybody, and thank you so much, St. John's, for being so welcoming and inviting us here. This is such an important topic, and I think something that we all really want to, as Lisa said, we want to return to life as we knew it. But I think my hope for all of us, my prayer for all of us, is that we return to life better than we knew it. And that we have had an opportunity through this to learn and to grow, and to make some positive out of some challenges. So my name is Kelly Kessler, and I am the Bureau Director for Population Health with the Howard County Health Department. Some of you may know me. I've been with the Health Department managing the Local Health Improvement Coalition for about 5 years now as well. And of the many hats that I wear through the health department right now, I am also our local representative on the Maryland Vaccine Equity Task Force. And I know that that's something that's really near and dear to this congregation's heart, is making sure that everyone has access, not only that they feel confident in their decisions, but that they have access to the vaccine when it is their turn. So I'm thrilled that throughout this COVID thing, one of the positives is that it has connected me with Dr. Rhea Cragen, local, Howard County girls connected through this strange pandemic way. And I'm going to let Dr. Cragen tell you a bit about herself, and then we'll jump right in.
Hi, I am also very excited to be with the St. John's family. I was baptized at St. John, married at St. John. So it's been one of the bright lights in my life. I am a family practice physician. I practiced 30 years. And one of the things that has been near and dear to my heart is community outreach and making sure that information gets disseminated to the people that they need it. Whether it is in an office setting or, you're sitting at home for a year in a pandemic and not always getting reputable information, and what comes to you on Facebook and Twitter may not be the best information. So this is a way for you to get your questions answered. And I hope that you feel free to type questions in the chat as we go along. So Kelly, I'm going to turn it back over to you to get us started with our slide deck.
Sounds good.
And one of the reasons why I think this is so important is that having a place to be able to reach out and get your questions answered is important. I'm not here to convince anybody to or not to take the vaccine. My goal is to make sure that you have information that is reputable so that you can make your own decisions about what to do for you and your family. Next slide.
Not a real good driver in real life, let alone on virtual. So I thought we would just start, I think, I don't know about anybody else, but I definitely have become a little bit desensitized sometimes when I look at numbers, because every day on the news, there's something new, some new numbers, some new statistic. We're hearing about efficacy. We're learning a lot. And I think sometimes I personally have experienced some data overload. But what I want to do is highlight two things. Specifically, the fact that where we sit just about a year later, we are sitting around tables and we are sitting around neighborhood picnics, and we are not yet sitting around services in church quite yet. But we have 228 Howard County residents, our friends, our family, our neighbors, that are no longer with us. And we have been through a lot. Every single one of us has been through a lot. hopefully there will be more good when we reflect back on this time than bad. But before we really start tonight, I just kind of want to take a second, and I'm going to pause for about 10 seconds, just to really reflect and to honor not only those souls that are no longer with us, but to honor the experiences that we have all been through. So I'm just going to pause very quickly so we can center ourselves on moving forward through this time. Thank you. I know we could probably share, and towards the end, I definitely would like to, if folks even would like to speak the name or type the name of loved ones that they've lost throughout this time, just to honor them. I know myself, having, said goodbye to my brother-in-law via Zoom, things you never expected to be doing during this time. We've all definitely been through some things. On the positive note, I want to share that in Howard County, 16.6% of eligible Howard County residents are what we would consider now fully vaccinated, meaning that if they are 2-dose vaccine recipients, they've had both doses. If they are a one and done vaccine recipient, that they have had that dose. So that's very exciting. And again, I want to just recognize the fact that we have done extraordinary work in the last year. To be just a little over a year ago, this is a brand new virus we've never even heard of, to now later on, we're going to talk about potential treatments. We're going to talk about having a vaccine to help prevent it. We're going to be talking about things that the history of public health have just, this is amazing. It's less amazing because we're all tired, but when we're reading about it years from now, or when people are studying this, people are going to recognize how absolutely amazing this is. And I want to say that, as hopeful as we can feel, and I think it is time to start feeling hopeful, we still do have to stay vigilant. And that means continuing to do those things that we have learned to do to protect ourselves and others: facial coverings, distancing, practicing hand hygiene, avoiding large gatherings. And we're gonna talk about those things for sure. I also just want to say that at this point in time, we're focusing our conversation around 16 years old and up Howard County residents. And there's about 256,000 plus individuals that are ages 16 and up. And at this time, there are not any vaccines that are authorized for under age 16. But that's on the horizon. And we hope that we'll come back and have discussions with you all about how do we help our young people make decisions. As a parent of teenagers, free will is a thing, but they're going to want to have some say in what's happening to them. Even at 14 and 13, they have opinions. And those of you that have been trapped in a house with them for a year know they've got strong ones. So we definitely have hopeful things on the horizon. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Cragen, and we're going to talk some about what we currently know about COVID and about the vaccine. And a lot of these are based on the questions that were pre-submitted, but I just want to invite folks again to make sure that you continue to submit comments and items in the chat. I know we're going to talk some about CDC guidelines, which of course changed again today for what can I now do if I am vaccinated. We're going to talk about potential treatments. We're going to talk about how do I even figure out where to go to get vaccinated. So hopefully we'll cover a lot for everybody in our conversation.
Next slide, please. So COVID-19 has the actual disease. SARS-CoV-2 is the virus, but COVID-19 is the actual disease, and it causes lots of symptoms. You've heard of some of them: cough, fever, shortness of breath, and loss of taste and smell, but there's also neurologic complications and cardiovascular problems, people having blood clots, with even pregnant people needing amputations of limbs after being infected with the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So the toll of the actual disease upon people has been dire. And then there are the long haulers who, now called PASC, who they continue to have symptoms related to having having COVID-19, with brain fog, headaches, neurologic problems, heart and lung ongoing difficulties, especially shortness of breath. Next slide. So it spreads from one person to another, usually by respiratory droplets. It also can be aerosolized so that it can stay around after someone has been talking or coughing or sneezing or singing unmasked. So it's important to have a good mask that is at least 2 layers, that covers both your nose and goes to the level of the chin, preferably under to form a better seal, but at least a 2 layer mask is what you would need to decrease transmission and exposure. And then, in terms of the variants, I know you hear a lot about this on the news. The most important thing to know is that viruses mutate. The more people they're in, the more they can mutate. So, if you only have 10 people in your community that have uh, COVID 19 and they can only spread it to a few more people, then you don't have a lot of COVID 19 in your uh, community, and the amount of viruses that can mutate and make different variants can be low. But if you have a lot of COVID 19 in your community, then you can make more variants. And we're already seeing new ones in New York and LA. And what you worry about is that these variants can either become more infectious, they can become more deadly, or they can evade the things that we have come up with medications and vaccines that can wipe out the COVID 19 variants. And the key with your vaccines is that you want to expose someone, tell a person's immune system what to fight. So most vaccines have, you can go to the next slide. Most vaccines have a recipe that Thank you. Most vaccines have a recipe that is encased in, for the mRNA, just a lipid layer that gets into your body. It gives the recipe over to your cells. Your cells start making antibodies that present it to your body and say, this is what you're going after. This is what you want to fight. And the key with vaccines is that you don't have to get sick for your body to have instructions on what to fight. And so the different types of vaccines, so the mRNAs are the Pfizer and the Moderna. People are saying that they were made quickly, but the technology existed before, and we pivoted all of our research towards this brand new virus with money and a variety of international collaboration to make sure that we got this vaccine out quickly and effectively. No shortcuts were taken because the amount of time in the studies was the same. What we cut out was the time that you needed to enroll people, because there were lots of people who wanted to volunteer. And we cut out the time that we needed to ask for money in between um, each step of the trials, so that we could speed up the production of the vaccine. Um, the ones that are coming out now, like Johnson and Johnson, AstraZeneca, those are viral vectors. So they put them inside an inactivated cold virus, and the same recipe for the spike protein tells your body what to fight. Okay, so the key with a vaccine is it is just a delivery system to get it into your arm, for your body to start making antibodies to tell your body, this is an enemy, you should fight this. And when you get a booster shot, either a second Pfizer or Moderna, or a second AstraZeneca, or a second Novavax, Johnson & Johnson is just one shot, then your immune system ramps up more and goes to fight the disease. And it takes what was a deadly, needing hospitalization, putting a tube down your throat, possibly amputation, heart, long-term problems, and makes it more like a cold. And so, that one of the questions in the chat was, does it give you immunity? We are unclear as to whether it completely gives you immunity so that you cannot get the disease. I have colleagues who they were up for their injection with the vaccine, and family members went out and partied after getting their vaccine and brought COVID-19 back to the house, and they ended up getting infected very soon after they had gotten vaccinated. Um, you are not protected until it is 2.5 weeks out from your second vaccine if it's a 2-shot regimen, or 2 weeks out from the J&J shot. And so the most important thing with the variants is to keep ahead of them. We need to vaccinate faster, or get people immune faster than the variants are mutating, so that we still have both therapeutics, drugs and medications to treat it, and vaccines that are still helpful. And so if you get enough people vaccinated, or they've had the disease and recovered, by the way, people who do get the COVID-19 disease, it is recommended that they get vaccinated, because your body does a better job of responding to the vaccine than it does to responding to the disease. People with the disease can get it again. And so it is recommended that you get vaccinated. So herd immunity, that you've heard talk about a lot, basically is if you have a circle of 10 people and you put an elderly person with pre-existing conditions in the middle who cannot get the vaccine due to being immune suppressed, or usually that's not a contraindication, but maybe they're on a medication and they can't get vaccinated now. They can get vaccinated in 6 months. So to protect that person who's in the middle of your 10 people, all those 10 people, if they get vaccinated, the person in the middle can't get the disease, because those around them won't be carrying it to them. But the key with getting together for this summer and the spring is that only vaccinated people get together in small groups. But we'll get to that in a minute. Anything you wanted to add, Kelly, on herd immunity or so far?
The only thing I would want to add, I saw a question in the chat regarding the different types of vaccines that have been authorized. And at this point, the 3 that have been authorized, many of us have heard information coming out about AstraZeneca. I think a lot of us woke up to our news alerts on the phone. So things are rapidly evolving. But right now in the United States, we have 3 that have received that emergency use authorization. And just for perspective on the local level, all 3 of those have been administered here in Howard County. We have, through the health department, received the Pfizer, Moderna, and the Janssen or Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Primarily, we have received Moderna. However, we are fully prepared and equipped to manage and administer all 3 of the currently authorized vaccine. So that's the only thing I'd add there.
And the question I get a lot is, which one would I take? I have already been vaccinated with the Moderna vaccine, but there is not one of them that I would not take, because despite them saying, okay, Pfizer and Moderna have a 94, 95% efficacy, and Johnson & Johnson has a 66% efficacy, all of them are 100% effective against severe disease and hospitalization. That is, having to spend the night in the hospital, getting a tube down your throat, needing, extended care, and, possibly having some of the long-term sequela of being hospitalized for weeks. So all of them work to keep you from getting very sick. And so therefore, all of them are very useful, including the AstraZeneca, which may be up for review in the next month or so. And then there's Novavax, which is also coming down the pike, which will probably get authorized. So ultimately, we will have more vaccine than we need. Of course, we are not there now. All right. There are no people that I know of that are not recommended to get the vaccines when they are eligible. And so the other question that I get always is about pregnancy. pregnant women are recommended by the obstetrics and gynecology board to be offered all of the different types of vaccines when they are eligible to get them. They have studies out now. The most recent was in JAMA that pregnant women are having a really hard time if they get COVID-19 while they're pregnant, because they are much more likely to have preterm labor and much more likely to have complications. I mentioned heart problems and blood clots that they would have for themselves. The good news is that they can pass antibodies through the placenta to the baby to help protect the baby. And they've also noticed that in breast milk, vaccinated women are able to pass antibodies to their children. So that is a very helpful thing for the younger people, for the babies and toddlers who cannot be vaccinated at this point. There are studies ongoing with kids. They've already started the 12 and under, and then they've moved down to the 5 to 12 group, which we're hoping to get studies out before the fall so that we can vaccinate for school. Okay, side effects usually are injection site. I had joint pain and aches for about a day and a half, and fatigue. I didn't get the headache. I know other people who did. And they're pretty similar for different vaccines. Some have more headaches, some have more body aches. But all of these are minor symptoms which go away in 24 to 48 hours, and they are nothing like having COVID-19, the disease.
Dr. Cragen, would you recommend, I know people have asked me this, would you recommend people sort of anticipate that they're going to have these things before their vaccine? And, should somebody be taking like Tylenol or something before they go? Or like if they're afraid they might have an allergic reaction, should they take Benadryl or something like that? Or is that not recommended?
That they take anything before they go and do their vaccine. However, if you do get side effects, then Tylenol or Advil won't be a problem if you're having fever and that kind of thing. However, I didn't take anything because I took a nap. I went to sleep, and that helped quite a bit. But knowing that you are probably going to get some symptoms that make it feel like you have the flu is useful for work purposes, to let your job know, maybe take, a couple hours off of work or end early. Just knowing that, you're going to have a little bit of feeling a little punky is a very common scenario.
I did see a question in the chat too about how long after, like if you've had COVID-19 illness, if you were diagnosed, is there a mandatory waiting time? Should I wait 6 months? Should I wait 90 days? Like, is there a period of time that you need to wait following diagnosis?
There's a suggested waiting time, and it's mostly based on the fact that we haven't had enough vaccines, which is 90 days. However, you are able to take the vaccine as soon as 10 days after you stop having symptoms. So you don't have to wait the mandatory amount of time. If you are in a group that is higher risk and your time to go get your vaccine comes up, you do not have to wait. There was also a question about how soon after do the side effects show up. Mine showed up within minutes, and they lasted for a day and a half. Everybody else is different. Some people's theirs didn't show up till 24 hours later. Everybody is different in that. It can be immediate, but it can be delayed. If the other thing that is asked of me all the time is, I have allergies to peanuts, I have allergies to food, I have allergies to seafood. The only thing that they recommend that you don't take the vaccine for is if you have allergies for the Pfizer and Moderna to polyethylene glycol, which is a very common thing that's in food products, it's in cosmetics, it's in ultrasound gel for pregnant women. It's the stuff that you drink to clean yourself out if you're going to have a colonoscopy. It's a little bit of everywhere. And so usually most people who have an allergy to this polyethylene glycol, they know about it, and they can go to a site where there are healthcare workers, and everyone has an EpiPen wherever they're going to give it. But sometimes if you have a history of severe reactions, you might want to go to a healthcare site like a hospital or a clinic, as opposed to just a mass site.
So one thing I just note, we'll touch on it in a minute, is also, part of the process for every vaccine clinic is we actually do everyone, regardless of if they have any contraindications or history of allergies or anything, everyone's monitored for 15 minutes after they receive their vaccine. But we do, for some, I was one of the lucky people because I'm just allergic to like literally everything, and weird things too, not food, but I'm allergic to a lot of things. So they invited me or directed me to stay for 30 minutes just for that extra monitoring. And, but again, there were, EMS on staff, there were EpiPens everywhere. And so that was very reassuring to me personally. But one of the other things I've heard a lot of people talk about, and just wondered if you could touch on, is that the second dose, if you receive 2-dose version, second dose is worse than the first, is what a lot of people have said. Do you have any thoughts or information about that?
I would say about 80% of the people say that the second dose is worse. That your immune system is primed, it's ready, and when it sees the spike protein again, it says, "Aha! We know what this is," and your response is a little more robust for some people. Some people didn't have any change from the first shot to the second shot, but that doesn't mean that you don't get protection. There was a question in the chat about how much protection do you get after the first shot. For Pfizer and Moderna, it's about 50 to 60%. And then when you get your second dose, it's more, in the 80s to 90s. For J&J, it's at 2 weeks when you're thought to be fully protected. It's about 66%, but it goes up over the next month till about 80%. So that's the one that keeps on growing as more time goes by. So for a J&J shot, the most optimal protection is after about 3 weeks.
So something that comes up a lot too, I said I last question, but I apologize, I was wrong. I had another one in there. I know a lot of people have talked about what does this mean? Like how, and I know you mentioned before, we don't know how long the immunity lasts from this. What are you hearing, or what do people in the field talk about? Like, will we need boosters? Will we need an annual COVID shot like we do our flu shot? What do you know, or do we not know yet?
So we don't know completely, but we are a year out from when people first started taking the Pfizer and Moderna shots. This was, March of 2020 when the study started. And they still have immunity, protective immunity that will protect them from severe illness or death, which was their endpoints. They wanted to make sure people weren't going to get very sick and die. And that protection is still going. They are still protected against the variants. The variants have not stopped our ability to decrease the effectiveness of the vaccine, and that's all of them. The only thing that we don't really know is, can you transmit COVID-19 if you've been vaccinated and you're 2 weeks out and you're exposed to someone with COVID? Can you get it and then give it to somebody else? The studies that are just out this week and last week said that you are less likely to transmit it, but it didn't give us 0%, right? So we still don't know completely, but you're less likely to give it because you're no longer coughing and sneezing. You only have maybe a sniffle because you've turned COVID-19 into a cold instead of having it be, your kidneys shutting down, or you need to be intubated or spending time in the hospital.
Thank you.
Okay. So did you want to go through the different phases, or did you?
Sure. I guess I kind of, if it's okay with folks, and again, we encourage you to keep putting questions in the chat, and hopefully, people are, getting some things answered as we go. But so something that's on a lot of people's minds is that, okay, I'm feeling confident. I'm feeling ready. I think I'm ready. When can I do it? And so I think that it's been very interesting to listen to a lot of the dialogue around, a lot of conversation around vaccine hesitancy. I have kind of started talking about, sometimes it's not so much hesitancy as it is people really want to be an informed consumer. I know I'd want to be an informed consumer if you were asking me to put something in me that was new. And so I think, a lot of people have now decided, I think I'm ready. I'm ready for this. And the question becomes, when can they get it? So in Maryland, I think as everybody's probably heard a lot on the news, the vaccine availability has been very limited. And so, we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like on the local level, but part of what was done in order to ensure equity or ensure that, efforts were done in a way to protect public health, and looking at those that were at highest risk. And I think initially looking at this from the, healthcare professionals that are on the front line treating, to the older adults that have, disproportionately died from this illness. I think that was where the initial look has been. However, it's really important that we note that there are many communities that have been disproportionately affected for a lot of reasons. In particular, COVID has had a very significant impact on communities of color across the globe, but here in Maryland, all the way down on the local level, if you look at Howard County. And if you're curious about data, we do have a COVID dashboard that now provides vaccine data based on demographic breakdown as well. I talked about being kind of tired of numbers earlier, but here I am sending people to numbers. So a couple of things I want to point out though, or just make sure as we talk about how you get it, is that COVID vaccine is available for all, meaning everyone should have access. It is free, and I'm going to talk about how it's paid for shortly, but nobody should be asking you for your credit card to get a vaccine. So we really want people to be careful about fraud and people that are taking advantage of people's desire to be vaccinated. And we also want people to know that COVID testing and treatment and vaccination are not part of what they consider public charge. So they have no bearing on immigration status or, folks that are working on becoming naturalized citizens. The vaccine and testing will not impact that. And so we just want to reassure people of that we want you regardless, to make sure that you are taking these opportunities. So Maryland recently also finally, I think, I say finally, that sounds very negative. We're thankful that we now have some parameters around timeline. And I think because of the limited doses that were available, it was very difficult to do this. But as you know, most of the channels on the various news channels have been covering today that in Maryland, as of today, we have officially moved into phase 2A, which is really all Marylanders ages 60 and over. And what was done last week was announcing a timeline for moving into the remaining phases. And you can see that it is estimated by the end of April, we will officially be in phase 3, which is basically all Marylanders ages 16 and up. And so this timeline is very rapid. And the governor has even shared, recently as a press conference that he held this afternoon, that the goal is really to have Marylanders vaccinated by 4th of July, I guess, thinking about that timeline, and really speeding up, making sure that we are reaching those goals in Maryland. So a lot of that, again, is determined based on supply and demand, but it's also determined on people being able to access the vaccine that is available. And so it has been, and I say this, in total transparency, it has been frustrating for a lot of people, and we recognize that. We were so excited. Last Friday was just a bucket filling, good, warm, fuzzy day. I went home and I was just like, I get to do some really cool things at work. And it's always a good day when you go home and your kids are like, Mom, you're cool. It doesn't happen very often when they're teenagers, but being able to work with St. John Baptist Church and doing a local small clinic and really trying to reach into the community, it's the starting point of something fantastic here in Howard County. And the governor announced even today that we are going to be in Howard County home to one of the mass vac sites that they'll be setting up. So we are, very fortunate in our community that we have faith communities that are stepping up, and you all have been stepping up throughout this entire time. On behalf of, the health department, I really do want to extend our gratitude because you've made sure people had food. You've made sure people have been connected. And you have supported all of us. And that means so much for the community, but it means a lot for us in the community also working in the public health space, because we could not make sure all these needs were met without these faith communities and communities such as St. John. So we do want to share, that there are kind of different ways people can come about getting the vaccine in Maryland. And I don't like to say two streams, but you could kind of think of it that there's the health department, i.e. local health department, and then there's everything else. So it's kind of two sorts. So I'm going to start with everything else. And the everything else includes the mass vaccination sites. So you've probably talked to people that have gone to M&T Bank Stadium, they've gone to Six Flags, there's, different sites coming online. There are pharmacies, so Walgreens, CVS, even Giant. Locally, we have a couple Giants here in Howard County that have been providing vaccine. Walmarts are starting to provide vaccine, a variety of places through their pharmacies. Hospitals, here in Howard County, Johns Hopkins, Howard County General has been providing vaccine. And then working with our, obviously, local health department. But there are other resources. So folks that are already connected with and part of the Veterans Administration and receiving care through the VA are eligible through that. And then now we're starting to see large group practices actually coming online. And you probably have heard about some pilot testing or pilot operations where practices are contacting individuals that are at known high risk and basically letting them know, hey, you have an appointment. And we can get you in. So it's very exciting to see these things kind of coming on board. Mm-hmm. But one thing that's important for everybody to know is it is entirely possible, hopefully less likely so moving forward as vaccines more available, but it has been very possible for the state to be in one particular phase and the county to be in another phase, because we're operating with different amounts of doses. And so I have heard people kind of confused by, well, why did why is the health department only vaccinating, 1A or 1B or, just moved into 1C, but I can go to Six Flags before others. And a lot of it has to do with, again, just making sure that those resources. So on the local level, what we receive through the health department, we're really still operating at that top of the pyramid where the state may have moved into different phases into that pyramid.
And one of the other things I just wanted to add, there was a question about why do you have to check into my chart or my portfolio. Every different place that has vaccine to give has their own registration process. Unfortunately, they're all individual. So you would need to register with the health department, or you would need to register through Safeway or, CVS or Walmart through their own individual.
And that has been very challenging. And we've probably seen like Vaccine Hunters and other groups kind of popping up to help assist with that. And that's really a call to action, I think, especially faith communities in particular. You all are already looking out for each other. So really kind of employing some of those channels that you already have, where I can help this person because I know that they don't necessarily use the internet, or they don't have access to it, or they don't have the ability to sit and, refresh. Like, if you go back to when the beginning of all this started and people were like constantly trying to find the elusive Clorox wipe, it's a lot like, trying to do that. And that has been very frustrating. And as Dr. Cragen said, there isn't like a central I can put in my information and everything that potentially is available to me pops up. There is nothing like that at this point. But in Maryland, we have the covidvax.maryland.gov website, and that actually will point you to all those different places that you can go and fill out pre-screening. And they have just very recently launched a pre-registration form. So for the mass vaccination sites, you can actually now complete a pre-registration form. And when an appointment becomes available to you, you'll receive the information so you can go register. So you don't have to continually be, trying to hunt all day long. They also recognizing the fact that a lot of people, really don't connect with this process very well through the internet. I'll be honest, I was trying to help my parents out of state find their vaccine. And, I work for the health department and I was confused. Now, granted, it was another state, but it was still like very challenging. And so, we have in Maryland now established a vaccination support center. So it's 1-855-MD Go Vax. And it's available, and it is available in multiple languages as well. So people who have questions, can certainly call and ask how can they be connected with the vaccine. In Howard County specifically, through the local health department, we had started with this pre-registration survey, interest survey, before the state had done that for their mass vac sites. And so we started putting out information for people to kind of say, hey, when a vaccine becomes available to me, I want to be notified that it's available to me. And so what we ask people to do is visit the website, hchealth.org. And there's a ton of information there in general, but you also find the links to our pre-interest survey. And it's important to know that doesn't make you an appointment. What it does is signal to us, I want an appointment when it becomes available to me. And so at that time, you'll receive a link that you can then go in and register. And as Dr. Cragen said, every registration is a little bit different. But it is important to know that a lot of them will ask, very basic information. But if it does ask for insurance information, please know that, if you do not have insurance, you will not be denied the vaccine. We also, things are mentioned about identification being required, documentation being required, and that lands on people in different ways, depending on, how you're experiencing, this process. And we really are looking to verify that you are you. And if we have to make sure that you're eligible based on a specific clinic type, for example, if the clinic is only open for people 60 and up, we need to verify your age, right? So that is really the only thing we would be looking at for our clinics in that way.
So if you don't mind, can I answer just a question or two?
Sure, please do.
That were in the chat. One of the questions that came up is, will any of the vaccines alter my DNA? And just to let you know, the unequivocal answer is no. There are none of them. The mRNAs don't have anything that would go into your cells at all, and it disappears after a couple hours once it's injected in your body. It doesn't stay around, doesn't have any residual. One of the reasons why it was so hard to develop in the first place is that the mRNA is unstable, and it needed the lipid packet that was designed by a Black physician to allow it to be stable enough to stay in our bodies, right? To get into the cell. So they disappear rapidly. They do not affect your DNA at all. And there are no chips in vaccines. In addition, there are no animal products in vaccines. They are not, they don't have any, they're fine for vegans or kosher people.
Thank you. Yeah. And I know my colleague who's kind of adding some information, there's a information for people that do have specific question about ingredients. The FDA actually has published where people can find certain ingredient information. And I know, especially having lots of friends with children with severe allergies. For certain vaccines, they've been told, okay, don't have it. Now they're told you can have it, but have it in the allergist's office. With these vaccines, we know that they don't contain egg, that they don't contain pork product, at least with these mRNA ones. Someone explained to me that mRNA specifically, they kind of likened it to like Snapchat. If anybody uses that particular social media app, that like it does what it needs to do and then kind of disintegrates and disappears. As a parent monitoring social media that way, not so good. As somebody getting a vaccine who doesn't want any extra stuff involved, very good. But I thought that was kind of an interesting analogy that they used. It kind of helped me understand it for sure. So whenever and wherever you get an appointment, whether it's through the health department or it's through a pharmacy or it's at a mass vac site, there's certain things that are common. Right now in Maryland, we don't really have any walk-in, like no appointment necessary vaccine centers. And I know in some states it's been like line up, first come, first serve. And that is not really how we're doing that at this point in Maryland. You may have to wait in line both inside and outside. And again, remember, we're doing this in a time when physical distancing is actually one of the best protective measures that we have. So as we bring people together, we have to protect not only the people coming together to get the vaccine, but the people who are vaccinating. So just, thinking about that in case, okay, well, maybe it's rainy, I might bring an umbrella, maybe it's cold or it's hot. I might need to sit or stand, so I don't know if that would be possible. Through the health department, I know we actually have mobile vaccination possible because we know some of our older residents really can't stand in the line or maybe even navigate the process. So we've actually got a system set up for individuals who can actually come out to your car and vaccinate you. At the mass vac sites, everything, when you've seen one vaccination site, you've seen one vaccination site. They're all very different and unique in how they're set up. I touched on the eligibility and proof of identity. We also, and I apologize for my typo there, we do encourage people to register. We were talking about the safety of vaccine. After you've received your vaccine, there's something called vSafe, which actually allows you to help contribute to the science of vaccine safety and help report and monitor anything that you experience following the vaccine. And there's actual special areas within that for pregnant women and others. So it's really a great opportunity for us. And honestly, that data is only as good as those of us that put data in it. So, we really don't want it to be skewed towards the data geeks like myself. We really want it to be broad and encompass diverse populations of people who have been vaccinated. So we help other people know what to expect. I would encourage people, keeping your vaccination card, not only as a historical memento, put it in a time capsule, but really it will help verify. Although we do, even though every system that registers you is a different system, they feed into something called Immunet. And so you will be able to receive verification online of your vaccine. And I really do want to restate that if you are participating in a 2-dose vaccine, so if you receive Pfizer or you receive Moderna, it is really important to get both doses. The efficacy and the science and the trials were really based on a 2-dose process. And so even though we know that there is some immunity offered after the first dose, we highly recommend and we do our due diligence to get you back for that second dose. Mm-hmm. And we really encourage you, take the one that is available to you first. I know we've had some people kind of say, well, I want to wait for Johnson & Johnson now. We don't know when that will necessarily be available. And so we don't want you to miss out on the opportunity. Unfortunately, we don't have the ability right now to kind of set it up so you can pick which one you want. We are sort of at the mercy of what we receive too, just like the pharmacies are. And so we do encourage people to, take the first one that becomes available to you.
And the more people that get vaccinated, it's an act of love for those who are around you. Sometimes in a family, like in my family, one person can get vaccinated before another, but all of them will help to protect my older parents who, don't live with us, but I interact with on a regular basis, and I don't want to take anything to them because, people haven't all been vaccinated. So exactly. We are still following our social distancing and masking, and everybody will get the shot that's available to them when it's their turn.
Exactly. Um, and I know that we're going to come up on the hour here. I want to make sure people recognize and understand again that um, who pays for the vaccine. Vaccination providers cannot charge you for the vaccine. They may charge like certain administrative fees that can be associated. If you go to the mass vaccination sites and you go to the health department sites, you're not charged any of those. A lot of the community settings, like at St. John's, we're not, we're charging anybody or taking insurance information for that. Vaccination providers cannot charge you like an office visit fee or anything like that. They can, however, seek appropriate reimbursement. So there are times, like, for example, the pharmacies like CVS or others, they will ask for your insurance information so that they can seek appropriate reimbursement from your insurance plan. But they can't charge you sort of a balance of a bill. And so it's really important for people to be aware of that because, we're all operating on some limited fumes right now, I think. And so finances are very difficult and tough for many people. And there are many people who, through job loss or other things may not have access to healthcare that they had prior, or maybe they haven't had access to healthcare. And we just want to assure you that that should not be a barrier to people trying to obtain the vaccine.
And some of the things coming down the pike, now that more and more people will be vaccinated, you get towards the full immunity 2 weeks or greater from your second dose of the Pfizer or the Moderna, 2.5 weeks, really 3 for Johnson and Johnson, and that will help protect you against severe illness and death. Getting together, people have been asking me a lot about that. What can I do? What should I, should I go to the gym? Should I, go see people? I am keeping up the same social distance recommendations that I have been. If you're interested in a gym, try to find one that has outdoor classes. That would be the safest way to protect you and your loved ones. If you are going to do something indoors, try to have it masked with good ventilation. And if you are going to have a family get together, I would recommend that we wait 2 months till more people are vaccinated.
Don't do it yet. That's the recommendation. Wait a little bit.
Don't do it for a minute. But if you're going to do it, make sure that you have your events outside, that you keep food separated from where people are congregating, and that, they are not people from different households interacting with food and drink together. Outside is best, well ventilated, and saving the food and drink until another time. Do it on a Zoom meeting, instead of getting together.
And I do think, I know that's a question that a lot of people have asked, is sort of like, okay, when can I see my grandkids? When can I hug my people? When can I, we're coming up on, actually, in this last week, 2 of the people closest to me in my life have both had their second pandemic birthdays. And, it's been, okay, when can I do this? And so, we do need to continue to use precautions. And the CDC, as I mentioned, they came out with some recommendations. They changed some recommendations, as of today even. And so what I would really encourage everybody to think about are, making decisions based on degree of risk. And so thinking about, every family and every community, your risk may be different. And you can't necessarily assume things. I know I live in a household with a very high risk individual. And, when you look and you see us out and about in the universe, you wouldn't think that my husband truly has not been anywhere but inside this house and in our car when I allow him to sit like a dog and go out for the last year because of his high risk health conditions. And, you have to think about, what's the extent of the virus circulating in the community, whether or not the people we are going to see have been vaccinated. Are they, doing high risk things even if they are vaccinated? Because again, we don't know, you might be vaccinated, but you may still be, able to transmit. It's important to really take those things into consideration. I know we are all exhausted Trust me when I say I would love so much to be able to hug my people. But it's just a little bit longer. And the more we kind of continue to be vigilant right now, the sooner we're going to get to that place. I would recommend, kind of hold off on those family reunions, as Dr. Cragen said, continue being in small groups. I know that it's really difficult. Many of us coming up on the holidays, last Easter was really difficult not being with my church family. And as, we approach, Palm Sunday, and we approach, Holy Week, and we approach, Easter, we approach Passover, all of these different things, that those are times that are those groups are so important to us. But it's also the love of those holidays that we can sort of channel in order to continue to be vigilant and maintain that distance. Because we don't want, as I said at the beginning of our presentation, we have many people who won't be with us for this year's holidays that were here last year, and we don't want to lose more people. So sometimes the most loving thing we can do is sacrifice, and I think this time of year especially, and talking to a faith community, that really means a lot to say that sometimes the greatest gift that we can do in showing our love is sacrificing for others. And so continuing to do that.
And we will have another update for you coming up, especially as we get some of the study information. There's 30,000 pregnant women healthcare workers who will have information out this summer, as well as the children who are currently undergoing the studies. And we should be able to have dosing information and useful, how, they need one shot or two and that kind of thing. And what ages will they be able to go down to, hopefully by this summer?
Yeah. So, and as Dr. Craig mentioned, we will be hopefully Reverend Turner and team will invite us back. But we've been talking about some of these additional discussions, diving in more into what can we do safely, diving in more into how do we make family decisions, diving in a bit more to think about like what is, we kind of jokingly said the new normal is now the better normal, or how do we make this a healthy normal for all of us? And how do we address these different health conditions that may have made people even more highly predisposed to having severe outcomes? So I think there's a lot of really valuable work on the horizon. So there's a lot that we can do now. Even before you're vaccinated and even once you're vaccinated, I think, there's a lot of opportunity for volunteering within the community, staying connected, certainly through the health department. We encourage you to, follow us on social media, as well as, our county executive and Howard County government have, regularly share information. The amazing work that you all do as a faith community to keep each other connected has been phenomenal. We do encourage you to get your vaccine when it becomes available to you, and share your testimony. Share your testimony about what the experience was like, from how did you get it to what happened to you, because this has been unknown for everybody, and there's a lot of comfort in hearing from other people that it here I am. We used to joke, oh, I didn't grow a tail. And but letting people know, like, I did it, I took this step because I care about you. And continuing again to wear your mask, keep your distance, wash your hands, get tested. We are getting there, and there is light and there is hope, and we are turning a historical corner that I think a year from now we'll all look back on, and we'll be in a different place, but it'll be a better place, I hope. And I will I'll end there. I don't know, Dr. Craig, if you have any last things you want to say, but I know it's 8:00. And so I think if, people had questions too. So Dr. Craig, anything you want to add?
No, looking forward to getting kids back into school safely. Hopefully we will have vaccinations for them before the year is out, hopefully before September, so everybody can go to school. But in the meantime, wearing your mask, keeping social distance, and when the vaccine is available, get the one that's available to you.
Wow, guys. I don't know about you, but I feel like I have been in school. This information was limitless. I mean, thank you so much for coming and sharing your expertise and your wisdom. I think this has been awesome. And I hope that everyone got the questions answered. If we have a few more minutes, if you have a question that wasn't answered, please drop it in the comment section. We'll try to get to it. We're going to have about a minute or so of questions, but I really want to thank you, Kelly and Dr. Cragen, for being available to us and to share
Anytime.
this information. I mean, I was sitting here, my eyes were getting big, and I was just like, oh my God. So it answered a lot of questions. It shattered a lot of myths. And it also confirmed that we still have to be vigilant. We cannot think about ourselves in this and just think that if we get the shot, everybody, who cares about everybody else? But we really, if we want to get back to our family time, one thing that I really miss are our family Sunday dinners. So if we want to get back to this, we have to really diligently make sure that everybody is getting vaccinated. It's not just who lives in your house. It's your cousins, it's your aunties, it's all of them, and it's your neighbors.
One quick question, quick story I wanted to share.
Sure.
I had mentioned earlier, I had a colleague who ended up getting COVID just before he could get vaccinated. His father, who was in his 80s, had gotten vaccinated and was so excited that he went out and visited everyone. Ended up getting COVID and bringing it back to the household and taking everybody out. They all lived through it, which is good. They did have a few long haul symptoms. And my friend has now gotten vaccinated, which is great. But it's one of those, that feeling after you get vaccinated that you now have something that you can go out into the world. I'm just saying, wait a little bit till you have full immunity and that those around you also can get vaccinated. And then you can head out with social distancing and masking.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We do have one question, and I'm going to try to, let's see, it won't all come up on the screen, so I'm just going to try to read it. It says, it's regarding the CDC guidelines about not testing or quarantining if exposed to COVID after vaccinations.
Right. And that should be, so the CDC guidelines have been changing a little bit, but the general gist that they want to get across is that you be around like people. So if you're vaccinated, it's best to be around those who are vaccinated. If you are around someone who could possibly have COVID-19, they've relaxed the quarantining rules, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't take precautions, especially if you have vulnerable people in your family. If you have vulnerable people in your family, you should act like you've been exposed and not expose them. So, you should keep your distance from those who are vulnerable.
All right. And when you talked a little bit about the vector vaccines, how effective are the vector vaccines at fighting COVID-19?
Well, as Kelly had on her slide, they're not apples to apples. They're kind of apples to oranges and bananas. And the AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson vaccines were tested at a different time than the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines, and in different places. And so some of the places they were tested were where one of the variants came from, the one in Brazil. And that one tends to be challenging for all of our vaccines. It's the one that's become the most slippery to not be as effective to antibodies that your body makes. Your body has other tools in the toolbox. It has memory cells that can go and attack once it's been exposed to something. So just because the antibodies aren't working as well for a particular vaccine doesn't mean that it's not still effective. So the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines are coming out with a newer, updated version, a booster. And that was brought up earlier. Will we need a booster shot? What they're thinking about is having one booster vaccine that puts a variety of different variants in it, and that you get one shot maybe 6 months later, maybe a year later. They're not sure. but it would be a way to bring you up to date, kind of like we do with flu, with all the different variants that happen to be out there and threatening at the time. So what we take next year may be different than what we take this year. But all that being said, the current vaccines that are out are effective. And that just because some of them have lost some of their antibody um, um, destructive properties, they are still effective at decreasing severe illness and death. And so I'm very encouraged that so far we are winning the battle against the virus, and that we need to continue to vaccinate faster than the virus mutates.
Is there a booster for the Johnson & Johnson?
Not currently.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank everyone. I think we've tackled all of the questions. You ladies did an awesome job with answering questions in the middle of the session. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank everyone for joining. We did have an awesome vaccine site at St. John on Friday. You can look at the pictures. I believe the health department has put the link in the chat to take a look at some of the pictures. We hope to have another one soon. I want to also let you know that we're going to have Kelly and Dr. Cragen back again. We are excited that they are going to do a series of workshops for us about the vaccination. Let's get vaccinated. And so every month on the fourth Tuesday at 7 o'clock, we'll meet right back here on Facebook Live and YouTube, and we will talk about more topics that are leading us back to our normal. And so we will have topics from April, May, and June, and they'll be right back with us. Again, thank you all for joining. Thank you to our panelists. We appreciate you, and we are looking forward to next month. Join us Sunday as well for our worship service as we celebrate all of our healthcare professionals in the worship service. Thank you so much, and everyone have a great night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.